Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to another installment of our Female Founder series. Today, I'm super excited to have with me someone who I met actually a couple of years ago at a conference and just was so drawn to your energy and passion. So, Julie, welcome to the show.
You. Oh, I'm so excited to be here and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here. And so, for everyone, this is Julie Downey. She's now the manager of the Century 21 Scheetz office in Carmel, Indiana. But she's also a broker with the En route team and has been in the business for quite a long time, has also done work with her MLS and has definitely been well connected in the industry. So, Julie, why don't we start with just your background? Tell me how you got into real estate and what keeps you here.
Okay, awesome. So, yeah, I kind of fell into real estate a little bit, and that's not typical because I had family in real estate. So, I say I fell into it even though I did have a bit of a family background. So, my mom, my brother in law, I had a cousin selling real estate. So, it was kind of the one thing, and my sister actually was working for an agent in real estate at the time also. And so, it was the one thing I knew I didn't want to do. So I graduated from Indiana University with a degree in speech communications. And I just always loved everything surrounding, communication and nonverbal and verbal and all that kind of stuff. That's what I studied. So when I got out, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. So I started a company with my cousin, and we were buying and selling frequent flyer miles, which was hugely common then. And that July, so we started in March, and that July, they changed all the airline regulations regarding frequent flyer miles and basically put us out of business. So now you didn't get the savings anymore. So I was kind of, now what am I going to do? I'd moved to Florida and didn't really know what was next. So I brokered myself a ticket to go backpack through Africa for 6 weeks. And right before I left, I had this little booklet that said, why consider a career in real estate? And so I took it with me. And again, did not want to do this business. I knew how overwhelming it was, how much time it took, all that kind of stuff. But then when I got home, I thought, why not? I know the business. I know I could help someone. So I got into just working with an agent at a local brokerage here in town. And then 22 years later, here I am. So I started doing administrative stuff and just learning the business from her on her team. And then as I grew in the business and loved it, I realized this is where I was meant to be. So what I love about real estate and what keeps me here is truly the ability to build what I want. So it can be whatever business I want it to be. So in years when, I have twins at home that are 8 now, but that year of them, growing them and being on bed rest the entire pregnancy and everything, real estate was there. I could continue to do real estate the entire time, which was awesome. And really just make of it what I wanted when it was right for my life and my time and my career. So that's truly, besides the ability to help people and, provide amazing service and coach agents, that's all the stuff that I love doing today. But yeah, all of that stuff is what keeps me focused on real estate and in this great industry.
Wow. Well, and that's a great story. I love too that you were actively trying not to
Right.
be real estate and it still sucked you in.
Mhm.
But so I'm kind of curious because I talk to a lot of women and I think one of the common threads is sort of having either forced revelations or accidental revelations and sort of
Mhm.
the importance of stepping back and actually being able to reflect and whether you're backpacking and you're physically like out of your normal place
Mhm.
or whether you're on maternity leave, you just had kids. A lot of women get into real estate then or switch careers then. And so I'm kind of curious, like, how do you attribute this change to that period of your life and that sort of shift, and how do you make time for reflection if you do now? Like, how do you make those backpacking moments in your day to
Right.
day when you're leading a team, you're brokering real estate, you have 3 kids, like you want to sleep at some point? How do you do that?
Yeah. Right. So that took a lot of years to figure out that life balance, but I really will say that I'm fairly good at it today. So being present, that's just key. I've also learned to kind of time block and own my time. So I try really, really, really hard to be present with my family when I'm there with my family and put the phone aside. And, I'll let them know when I'm going back to work in the evenings, like, hey guys, I'm going back to the office, so that mentally we're all on the same page and being present when we are present. But reflection time is in my calendar. So, it's how I start my day with journaling, and just kind of reflecting on what I want to get out of life and the day and everything. So, and that is on my calendar. That's the only way I get it, really, with balancing and juggling everything else. So, as far as, we're not so good at it anymore, having the kids with getting away and doing those travel reflections and things like that. So, we try really hard to schedule at least a week every year for my husband and I to kind of get away from the kids and just get back together us. Um, and then we try to get away with the kids as well so that they learn that time away. And then with my team, with my agents, when you're away on vacation, that's time to be away on vacation. So just shut it down completely. Don't be dealing with stuff back at home. Hand your business off to someone else who can take it completely away from you, so that, and then that's important. I'm telling my kids that same thing. Like, your friends aren't here on vacation with us, right? So leave your friends back at home, and let's just be together, and let's be present, and let's be where we are. And so, it's hard. It's not the easiest thing to do, to own that time yourself, but then also to teach it to my children is even a bigger challenge. But we work hard on that, trying to make sure that happens.
Yeah, well, I love that, you're doing it. So congratulations. You're a role model for all of us. Because so many people do talk about, real estate is the job that never sleeps and you never take vacation. And there's so much hard work in it. And I think that this year, especially with sort of having a forced pause, a lot of people who really didn't prioritize that sooner are coming around. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you have been.
Yeah.
Um, can we talk about, the big C word, COVID for a
Yeah,
minute?
right.
I know since
Absolutely.
it's been
It's everywhere.
exactly, it's affected all of us. So I am
Mhm.
curious, how is your business doing this year? What's changed? And how are you feeling?
Yeah. So honestly, business is absolutely right back where it should be. So I never would have guessed that. Had you told me on March 15th, when we closed the office down, and everybody had to go home, that we would be right back ahead of last year, I would have said there's no way. But I think what that speaks to is the resiliency of our industry. So, I mean, we had a lot of the technology in place already. We just weren't awesome at it. So we weren't forced to be awesome at it. And so that's what we've learned. And that was the turn on a dime that I had to do with my agents and stuff. We had to think about, how are we going to take listings without walking in the house? How are we going to show buyers without walking in the house? And we figured out how to do all of that. And luckily didn't have too many setbacks with it. So, again, so the conversations when it started was, number one, how do we do this? And number two, how do we then bulletproof the transactions to make sure they're not going to fall apart because of the changes we've made? Right. So there was a lot of forward thinking in the beginning of all of it just to make sure. And then I think with all of that planning and thoughtfulness is what has kept us going to be able to continue to do it. So yeah, it's luckily working. And I think we're, getting better with technology and getting better with learning how to build relationships through a screen, right? Because that's the hardest part of all of this, is keeping your relationships there and how to meet people where they are and
Mhm.
not be able to see them face to face. So,
Yeah, well, and a lot of people I know are talking about the difficulties, and we're experiencing this too, with just trying to maintain your culture and being a
yeah.
leader of a team within Century 21 Sheets too. I'm curious, are you doing things like, virtual happy hours? Are you doing other things that really you're doing for your agents? Because that's really who your client is.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, we're doing all of that kind of stuff. So we are, split the office into smaller groups, like mastermind groups that we meet weekly to just kind of discuss, what are you seeing, what are you feeling, what challenges are you having, how are you succeeding through those. And that's been great, because that's been a constant communication between, myself and the agents. I'm huge in coaching, so I love to coach, but I always have a coach for myself.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm working with my coach right now, is really change management, and how do you change the culture with this COVID and with these new, limitations that we have on being able to build the culture. So, it's going to be an ever evolving thing, I think. So, it's kind of baby steps, but the biggest thing is just more communication with them. That's what has been huge. And then teaching them how to build the relationships to keep their business going. So, how are they reaching out to people? It definitely, like the virtual happy hours, absolutely, virtual book clubs. So everything you might have met your friends for early before COVID, now we're doing it virtually. So, which has kind of been fun. We've got a managers group where all of us at 5 o'clock, have a drink together, just kind of talk about the week, and that's fun. And then with my neighbor friends, we are sitting in the driveway 6 feet apart in our big circle. We all bring our own cooler and chair and everything. So, just really trying to keep it as normal as possible in this new life, which isn't always easy, but it's working. So that's good.
I love that. And I love also that you mentioned the relationship piece earlier, that really technology enables you to connect with others and have those relationships. It doesn't replace it. And so I'm kind of curious, on that front, sort of what some of the technology platforms or tools you've been using, whether it's really just the Zooms, the FaceTimes, and then from a marketing perspective too, if you've changed anything about how you're reaching out to your, prospects or your agents are, and what tools you're providing them to do that.
Yeah. So I am a firm believer in the phone call. So it's old school, but I absolutely believe in that. And so that's a huge thing with trying to get the agents. If you haven't been making phone calls before this, pick up the phone and reach out. It's free. And it's a great way to build a relationship. So they get to hear you, hear your sincerity in your voice and that kind of thing. So that is totally not a technology piece, but it's something that's become more and more important now, because we may have been able to run into people, at games or at the grocery store or something like that. And you're not, even if you do run into them, you may not recognize them, and you sure can't smile at them and, start a conversation. That's too hard now. So that is definitely one of the things. We use Microsoft Teams in our office. So it's a similar platform, but it's kind of nice because we've got a chat feature within there too, and we can set up projects and stuff like that. So that's great. Zoom is obviously a huge one that we've been using. That's more of my MyBor, MLS, stuff like that. We use Zoom all the time. Um, and really just like everybody's got to have a CRM, and those are mostly digital right now. So, that's how I make sure that I'm keeping up with who I'm keeping up with when and at the right time, and that sort of thing is just through having all of that set up. I will say social media has always been important, but being more purposeful about social media is definitely something that has come around more. Again, you're now trying to run into them on Facebook or Instagram rather than in the grocery store, so that's kind of the MO with that. So I think people are becoming more purposeful with those platforms also.
I love that you said too, just the reality of, wearing masks or being distanced. You don't always know. I mean, I actually ran into a friend this weekend at a playground, and I mean, yes, they were across the playground, but they had a mask on, they had sunglasses. It took me like 5 minutes to recognize who it was. I was like, we used to spend so much time together. This is
Right.
weird.
It is very weird. And with the agents in my office, I mean, people are not in as much at all. And now when they are, they've got a mask on. I've got a mask on. So it's very weird and different. I never realized too. And I was having this conversation with my daughter last night, but smiling at people. I'm a smiler, right? Like I like to make eye contact. I like to smile at people when I'm out and about, and not having that is a really weird thing. So I'm still smiling at them with my eyes, but it's just weird. It's weird not to have that feedback from other people too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
mhm.
Well, and I'm curious because you mentioned MyBor, and I know you've done a lot of work with your MLS past president. I believe you're no longer, is that correct? Or
Right. I am the past president this year, so I'm still on the board.
yeah.
But yeah, this will be my official last year at that.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I'm sure bittersweet, but hopefully you get a little bit of time back. But
Right.
I'm curious sort of how that has intersected with your career and as going through real estate, going through your real estate experience and taking on a leadership role, but also brokering yourself. Sort of what value you think involvement outside of your full-time job
Mhm.
um, has had for you.
Oh, that's such a great question. And honestly, it's everything. So it's funny how the biggest value in my life came from the job I didn't get paid for.
Mm.
So, and that was a struggle, right? I had to fight with myself for that because that's where I wanted my energy and I wanted my time and my thoughtfulness to be, but it wasn't what was supporting my family. So I had to constantly do that balance as well. But I mean, volunteer leadership is everything. It's a way to give back, but it's also a way to grow. I mean, I have the best conversations, meet the best people, right? You and I meeting at something for that. And I really just feel like it's the way to expand your mind, to continue to learn. But there is so much that happens in this industry that the typical realtor has no idea about. Like they have no idea how much we do for the community and how much we do for economic development and legislature and right, all of those pieces. And truly, I didn't know either until I took the time to learn about it. And then once I did, I was like, yeah, that's everything. That if I could do anything in real estate, that's what I want to do is lead within the industry. So I mean, it's just been great. It's the gift that continues to give back, through relationships, through education, the things that I've learned and I'm able to take back to my agents is awesome. And yeah, I mean, if I could do that forever, I would. So now it's kind of that hill of looking over to what's next, which has been a really fun adventure and a process to be in is, where am I going next? But it's also a challenge because there's a fine stop to that. And it was such a great experience for 8 years. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
I love that. I love that message too, that really, a little bit of almost like hesitation or guilt prioritizing yourself and your own development over both your family, but also your team. And the fact that it actually, gave back to you and then you were able to give back, it helped you pay it forward. And I'm sure, I mean, your team and others are better off from you having that
Yeah.
knowledge and exposure. And obviously the association. So I'm curious, sort of for others out there, do you have, some resources, people you follow obsessively, books you've read, or other ways you can kind of, besides, joining the association and besides volunteer leadership, are there other ways that you satiate that sort of curiosity?
Yeah, that's awesome. So the book that comes to mind most right now that I just love is Unique Ability. And when I was going through my process of coming out of being the president and, what's next for me, I spent time in that book and implementing it. And it's a really awesome process to just go through. And it truly is a process, but it's about, looking inward and trying to identify what your unique ability is to those around you. So, we might have an idea of what our unique ability is, but it's what other people glean from our unique ability, which is where the power comes from. And so I learned a ton going through that process, and I recommend everyone do it at some point in their life. So it's pretty awesome. I love podcasts. So I do listen to a lot of podcasts all the time. I typically always have a real estate coaching podcast on my phone when I'm in the car and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I don't ever think you can learn enough. So anyone that I can be out there following, I try to, and just anyone that has new great things to share, I'm glomming onto those all the time too. But yeah, I always love to have in place a business book and a personal book that I am reading at any time. So if I'm in the mood for just letting my brain go, I'm just reading a fun fiction book. And then if I'm really wanting to challenge my brain, I'm reading, something else. So one of my other favorite books that I recommend for everyone who has any sort of a team or teamwork relationship that in which you deal is the Founder and the Force Multiplier. So it's about how you can get your culture, but then communicate that down to everyone who needs to know and love and feel it and live it. So that's a really powerful book as well. Two of my favorites.
Awesome. Well, I'm writing them down for everyone else if you didn't catch those.
Well, let me know what you think.
I will. It's funny. I read someone's blog. They said they had a goal and actually achieved it of reading 365 books in a year.
Wow.
And how is that possible?
Yeah.
And they said every time they stood in line, every time they went to the bathroom, like every time they had time they were sitting or standing, they would read. I was like, that's a little extreme for me, but I like one or two a month is kind of my goal that I'm not hitting right now. But
well, an audiobook is everything for me. So because I can continue listening when I am doing stuff. So I like to have that in when I'm out and about and driving so that I'm still reading, even though I'm not looking at it.
Totally. Yes, that is a great point. So I'm curious. So you've had a pretty good year, all things considered, which congratulations. I'm very, very happy for. I've been in the industry for 22 years, done a lot of different things. What's next for you and what's next for your team? What does success look like in the next couple of years?
Right. So I will say that's a bit to be determined. So we don't really know. And I am in this self-discovery phase for myself, trying to, kind of figure out what's next. What I will say is that what I definitely want to be doing is still growing and teaching agents. So that is most definitely my passion, is to take what I've learned from so many people who have influenced me and hopefully be able to do that for others. Um, to have a firm, I don't know. Isn't that funny? So that's what I do know. I know that I am at the point in my life after 22 years where I can be a little bit selfish. So I can spend time really looking at, okay, what do I want to do? What day do I want to have that fills me up on every level? And I can work towards that. So what I have realized is that coaching and growing agents is absolutely what I want to be doing. And then I just want to get better at it and hone my skills and be able to change some lives for the better this way as well.
That's awesome. I'm sure there are many people out there that would appreciate that mentorship and
I hope
also,
so.
yeah. I'm curious, and so tell me again. So how many people are part of the Carmel office currently? How many agents do you have?
So we have about 92 agents. So, and it is myself, and then I have another co-manager that helps all these guys. But I'm definitely on the business development coaching side more than the like transactional and training side. So, but yeah, it's a lot of agents.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's the size of, bigger than a lot of brokerages. So I'm curious, because a lot of what you've talked about is, I think, continuous learning, sort of the experience that you built up, sort of going with your gut. And also, clearly you've been really successful. So how do you measure success and track success? And do you have any systems or like metrics in place that you actually use to figure out when maybe a new agent has hit the next level or identify changes you need to make within the team?
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I'm really big on everyone has to do what fills them, right? So, with the team aspect, sitting down and understanding, okay, what goals are for you and what do you want to do with those goals? Like, you want to make money, but what do you want to do with the money that you're making? And that's the same thing that I try to learn from every one of my agents is why are they working? And what drives them to their success, right? Because it's different for everyone. But then I want everybody to get down to their one number. because everything has to be measured, right? Which is a number. So whether it's how many people you have to talk to today about real estate, that's your number. Whether it's how many appointments you need to set this week, that's your number. But really big on everyone just getting completely clear on what their number is and why that number is what it is. So,
And you can only have one.
you
Is
only
that
have
right?
one. Yep.
Wow.
It
That's
all
awesome.
comes down to what's your one number, right? That's going to have you succeed. And it's that. So now, again, that one number consists of a ton of things, right? That we use to come down to that. So it is all your conversions and where do you get your business and all that kind of stuff, but really truly getting it down to one number. And that's for your brain. That's, to get clarity within everything that's going on in your brain all the time and really just be so clear with what you have to be doing every day to make sure number one you've done your job, because in real estate it's super easy to work a whole day 8 hours and not have done anything in your job that day. So really focusing on what are the activities you're doing that are going to make you money, and what are the activities you're doing just to keep things going, and getting clarity on those things and just really making sure you've done your job every single day.
Wow. And so I would imagine, like thinking through some actual examples, you might have some people who, yeah, they're in it for the money is sort of wealth creation or financial independence. But then
Mhm.
also other people that maybe it's like a lifestyle, maybe it's a way, a means to spend more time with their family or somebody else. So their one number might be like a number of hours in the day they get back as opposed to like a retirement age, or is that how it works?
Absolutely. Yep, that's exactly. So it's that number that's going to drive them and fill them up is what
Mhm.
you want them to focus on.
I love that. That's awesome. I think personally, I'm gonna think about that. I'm always
Right?
trying
I
to do
know.
like 3 or 4 things, but
I
just
know.
one is really hard.
Just one is really hard, right? And even if your one thing is giving 1 hour of undivided attention to your kids every day, I mean, sometimes that's hard, but as long as you've done your one thing, you can go to bed knowing I did my perfect day today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And motivation is such a big part, obviously, of all our lives and your role too. And so it sounds like actually, given all things this year, that people are in a pretty good place, or at least, you've set a pretty good attitude for everyone. But I am kind of curious, if you are talking to an agent or maybe someone just in the industry who's questioning right
Mhm.
now whether they should be in the industry through the changes, or maybe they're struggling. Maybe they just started before the pandemic. They didn't really have a sphere, or they're in a tough spot. What do you say to those people? Have you actually coached people out of the industry, and sort of are you seeing that?
Absolutely. And so, motivation is everything, right? And your mindset is everything. And those are the two things I feel like have been the most challenged through COVID, because it is hard to stay completely motivated when you're maybe not in your office and you're not seeing your clients and your schedule isn't booked with appointments and things like that. But yeah, it's taken a lot. So I have coached some agents to understand that maybe this isn't the perfect thing for them and not the right time to get in. But then there's so many. I mean, it's unbelievable how many people are getting into real estate every single day still. And it is a great time, right? Like, this was an industry that, while the entire economy stopped, we were still able to continue doing business. Now, that was not the case in every state, so that's not a blanket statement. But in Indiana, we were still able to. We were still able to build our businesses, and we were still able to buy and sell houses and that sort of thing. So, for a lot of people, if they have the right mindset and they're self motivated, I think self motivated is the big key in real estate. Is that you can't count on anybody else for your motivation. But if you're a self-motivated person, we can teach you the rest. We can teach you what to say. We can teach you where to go for business. We can, hone in on your strengths for building business and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really getting that understanding of, are they the right fit for the longevity of this business? Yeah. I'm trying to help them succeed through that, or realize that maybe there's something else that's better for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've really clearly you're on top of sort of what what's happening in the market, but also really been able to find a niche for yourself with this coaching role. I'm curious if we can sort of step back and look at both your experience with the association, brokering, being in leadership. There are some different models out there right now, right, of brokerages, and there's sort of the top producing agent. I'm just going to stay transacting my whole life. There's teams, there's brokerages, there's fully virtual brokerages, there's sort of the more traditional model. So do you have any bets on which is going to see the most growth, in the next in the immediate future, just given that you've done a little bit of each? You're now part of a
Right.
larger franchise. You've done the team thing, you've been an individual agent.
That's the million dollar question, right? Because we just don't know. I think in the immediate future, I definitely think we're going to see a lot more agents going virtual,
Mhm.
um, because they're realizing how much they can do virtually and how that they're saving time not having to drive and get into the office. However, the big challenge for everyone is because we are relationship people and in a relationship business, how do we keep those relationships built and still feel like we've got that one on one? So, we're having those conversations right now amongst our office. Is it more of a social gathering now than a educational gathering? And the education happens over Zoom. Is it a little bit of both? I mean, I just really don't know. We have seen some virtual brokerages not be able to make it, right? Even in this time. So it's just super interesting. I don't know. And as much as I think we're in a really interesting time right now because things are so up in the air. We don't know what next week looks like. Nevertheless, can we go on a trip for spring break? So I think all of that makes it just so much harder to plan. But there again, I think that's why that clarity on what you need to do every day and what you should be waking up and accomplishing in a day is more important than ever, because the big picture of life is so in question right now that at least if you can keep your eye on the ball for what you've got to do to keep moving forward, that's what's getting us one step ahead of the other every day.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, maybe looking into the future is a little too, nobody
Right.
has a crystal ball. I am curious because you have joined the Century 21 Sheets organization, and you had been independent previously, as well. So, maybe just talk to me a little bit more about what value do you think being part of the Sheets family? I mean, obviously Century 21 Sheets is one of the largest Century 21 offices in the entire country.
Yeah.
But what value do you feel like that transition has provided you?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. So, what I love about it is it's the national organization of Century 21 with a huge local brand and name. So, the Sheets name is kind of what our area has been built on, which is pretty fun. So, we have great local representation as well as the national brand. Um, the absolute values to my business has been the ease of just doing business. So the wonderful piece is that the foundation of this company is built on, we've got a whole department that takes care of your listings for you. We've got a marketing department that will help you brand and market yourself. They just really have simplified all of the hard things that it takes to be an agent, and they've provided that as part of the relationship with the Sheets brand. So it's pretty cool. So we're not limited on just what the big national company is doing. Right now, we can bring that down to our local level and be hyper local with what we think needs to happen here in Carmel, Indiana. So I think it's the best of both worlds, which is great. And then all of the support, leverage is such a big thing. That's how you get your hours back, right? Is realizing what things you're doing that maybe is not dollar productive and is taking a lot of your time and energy. So being able to give that stuff away to someone else and focus on really what matters is everything. So, and it's all built in here. Like that leverage is here when you walk in the door. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's sort of the economist way of looking at it too. How much is your time worth versus how much is
Right.
it worth to pay someone else? Or, am I going to get takeout tonight? Well, that's the dilemma, right?
Yep,
Might seem
absolutely.
expensive, but when you weigh it against the other things, it might actually be cheaper.
Yep,
Well, cool. So, just really two more questions
great.
because, what we all need is more Zoom calls these days. I'm curious, being as successful as you are, too. We all make mistakes and we all learn. And I'm curious what advice you'd give to your younger self today, looking back and sort of whether you had a moment, not great moment in your career that you wished you had
Right.
been there for.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know that I have any real big like individual moment. I will say, knowing now, if I knew then what I know now, starting in real estate, I wish I would have learned to pick up the phone earlier and learned that mastering your skills is everything. I think so many people in this industry just kind of react, right? Something comes in, you just do it. You might fail, you might succeed, you don't know. But really having the skills behind you to make sure that every opportunity becomes a success. Because there are so many lost opportunities that happened in my 22 years. And so if I would have learned to hone in my skills much earlier and then be able to be comfortable picking up the phone and having conversations with people, I think it would have completely changed my business twofold. So if I can teach the younger people that when they come in, that those are the huge things they need to get right away, I think they'll be big successes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all that wisdom with everyone now instead of
Yeah, absolutely.
just your team. And so, last question, tell us, Julie, something about you that most people don't know. Just something fun, not necessarily real estate related.
Right. I love to travel. So I mentioned that my Africa trip in the beginning. Um, I absolutely love to travel, as does my husband. So we're anxious to be able to do that again.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I mean, I think that is something that not many people know about me. And that is definitely where, if I have any time away from real estate, that's what I want to be doing with my time.
What's your favorite place you've ever been?
Oh my gosh. I love San Francisco. So my brother lived there for 20 years. So I have to say that I have a little bit of a different opportunity with San Francisco because I've been more than just a tourist there. But I think it just is such a melting pot of the entire United States, and it's just super cool. So it's got mountains, water, great things to see. It's got like a little bit of everything there. Big city, you can feel small town and all of that. So that's kind of my little heaven on earth place.
Well, I hope you get back there or to a new place soon. And thank you again for being here with us today, Julie. For everyone else who maybe didn't catch the beginning, this is Julie Downey. She is the sales manager, or manager rather, at the office in Carmel, Indiana for Century 21 Sheets, also founder and broker of the En route team. And this is the Female Founder Series. I'm Rachel Allard with Union Street Media. Join us next time.
Bye.